Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Farmers Market webinar. This is the last webinar in our three-set section on farmers markets. My name is Lindsay Pageau. I work for Cornell Cooperative Extension as an Ag Business Development Marketing Specialist. So when we talk about farmers markets, we're looking for, when we go to a farmers markets, and just another outlet of places that we can sell our farm-based products. I always ask people, like, what are they planning to sell at the farmers market? Is it produce? Is it value-added products? Is it cheese, ice cream, jams and jellies, candles, lotions? Is it live plants? Is it different crafts that they're bringing, or other different food service cooked foods that are going to be available at the farmers market? So I have a bunch of different photos from farmers markets that in New York State, but also farmers markets that are located down in Florida. So I like to just show different, I'm going to have a bunch of slides on different setups of people, what they have for displays. So when we talk about farmers markets, I always like to talk about what's the market manager? Who is the market manager? And what does a market manager do? So the market manager is going to be the person that's going to be running the farmers market. They're going to be in charge of, like, if you have questions, questions or any concerns about the venue that you're going to. But they're like the main key person within whatever organization that's hosting the farmers market. They're going to be the person that you're going to going to with questions and concerns at the farmers market. They can also help if there's issues, like an example would be like Wi-Fi access, for payments. A lot of different farmers markets, especially like I live up in the North Country. We have one farmers market located in Keene. They've done a really nice job with upgrading what they have for like Wi-Fi access. And so if there was an issue with that, then as a vendor, they would go to the market manager with any concerns. So this section we're going to talk about is displays. I always, when I go visit farmers markets anywhere from in New York State, any ones that I've seen overseas, the display of how things are going to look, it really, I feel like it helps to engage the customer to want to come in and see what product you're trying to sell. So you definitely want to make sure that you're highlighting whatever type of product is that you're trying to sell to farmers markets. Like this, this photo shows a great picture of like all the produce that's going to be available, beautiful colors, it's well organized, there's price listing. So how much does it cost? I know as a consumer, I could either just be walking by or going in. I don't have to actually interact with somebody to find out how much is this going to cost, if it's going to be affordable for my budget. So it's really important to have, information about what the cost for each of the product is. Also, with your displays, they can, depending on how you organize everything, they really can tell a story about your farm and what you're growing for, your farm-based products. The other thing too is to think about, are the products that you can be selling at the farmers market your own, that you're growing on your farm or producing those value-added products, or is it's going to be products that are brought in from another farm or another craft maker. You have to also be aware as if you're bringing in products that aren't your own from your own farm, there might be a percentage of how much of that outside product. It might be that 70% has to come from your farm and 30% can come from other people's products. So make sure you look at what those requirements are going to be. What type of certifications? Are there any specific certifications that you're going to need to be selling and displaying at the farmers market? And I'll talk a little bit about some of those certifications in the next couple of slides. The other thing too is how do you look at the market as a farmer? What's your overall appearance? Does it look like you just came out of the field and there's muck all over your boots? That's not very appealing, especially when it comes down to, products that you're going to be buying. Like if you're going to be at a farmer's market selling your product, making sure that you know, take care of all your farm stuff ahead of time before going to the farmer's market, and then making sure that you have clean clothes, clean shoes, because you're representing the farm. And if you have dirt and stuff all over your clothes, your shoes, that's going to be, you know, that could give a wrong impression to a customer, like maybe this food isn't that clean. So think about what you look like. I know specifically, I remember years ago talking to my brother about this when he would go to farmers markets throughout New York State. And he specifically looked at what the farmer's appearance was. And if they weren't, you know, if it looked like they just had rolled out of the field and were dirty, he never stopped at those vendors. He kept walking on. So just think about that from a customer's point. Who's watching your displays? So say you need to step away from your display at the farmer's market. Who's going to be watching those? So if you're the only person that's going to be attending the farmer's market for the farm, think about making friends with the person has the display next to you so that you can potentially, you know, offset who's going to be able to like just watch your display for like a moment or two at the farmer's market while you step aside. Payment methods. So that's one of the things, the key thing is what are you going to be offering for payment methods at the farmer's market? Cash, credit, checks maybe, but having various forms of payment methods are really important for your customers. The other thing too is with thinking about when doing payment methods, especially for running credit cards, is making sure whatever platform you're using has potential for an offline mode. Usually with offline modes for payment, usually you have to make sure it's payment processed within 24 hours, but having a payment, that option of using offline mode for a little bit of, you know, for the day that you're at the market and then process the payments is really important, because there's going to be places potentially in New York State where farmers markets are being run, but there's not very good internet access. And then how much time does it take to set up a display? I want to definitely stress making sure that you arrive to the farmers markets with enough time to make sure that you can set your display up, potentially help, you know, help set up like a big market tent. My mom was a market manager for many years. And one of the requirements of being a vendor was that you showed up ahead of time and helped put up the big vendor tent. Some people also had their own pop-up tents, but people worked together. So finding out what the requirements are of how much time you're going to also need additionally to be at that market to potentially help out and take down like a market tent, but also set up your own display, because you don't want to be walking, you know, setting your display up when customers are walking by, and that was your opportunity to do sales. So making sure that everything's set up ahead of time is important. So these are some different pictures of some different displays. I always like these displays that, you know, you kind of can pull up into a farmer's market and just pop up the sides or roll down the windows. Makes things a lot easier. I think definitely a lot of things probably could shift depending on driving down the highway in these type of setups, but this is, you know, this is a nice clean space that you've prepared ahead of time, that you've organized, and you have your displays figured out. The other thing too is when it comes down to displays at a farmer's market is think about like this. I like this tent right here is because you can see everything on the outside. You don't have to enter a tent. People can have easy access to it. There's one farm market that I attend, and the farmers display is, I think, about 2 of these tent sizes, but you have to walk into the display. And so they end up having a huge long line of people purchasing their products, and people are having a hard time getting in and out. So having stuff around the edge where people can kind of walk around, see what you have available tends to be very inviting. So a lot of people also have different displays and different food trucks. Um, making sure that, you kind of have a little bit of a barrier too, if you're going to be selling some of these fresh baked products so that people aren't touching them because that could be a food safety concern. So I like that they have these like plastic barriers to kind of keep the public from just grabbing stuff. And this is another display where it's um a roll down method for the to keep the product contained when you're driving down the highway. I always like to show this picture. I always thought these are really cute when I would travel overseas and go to different markets, is the little blackboards with a chalk written of the product name and how much it costs. Also taking and having a sign like, is tax included or not included? So especially if it's food-based products, then you don't have to worry about taxes. But if it's going to be like cut flowers or candles, like knowing ahead of time if it's included or not, is nice. This is a display that I saw at one of the indoor markets a couple years ago. These DAC bars are yummy nutritional bars, and what they did was they filled the different products that they are in those DAC bars into those glass jars so people could kind of see what the different ingredients are. Versus turning over a container and like reading off the ingredients on the back. In our webinar series before, we did cover a couple of things, but I just want to make sure that that is highlighted, that when you're going to a farmer's market, that you have insurance, and especially insurance that is covering you to go to that market. Know what your policy is. Make sure that you explain to the insurance company what you're producing, where you're taking the products, find out what's included, what's not included. Is it a home or a commercial business policy, and know what the insurance policy coverage dates are. And if there's a possibility, talking to the insurance company that, the farmer's market is only from this date to this date. Is there a way I can get coverage, for a short period of time? Or maybe you want insurance coverage for the entire year, depending on what's going to work best for you. Regulations and sanitation. So, as mentioned before in one of our previous webinars, was covered about the different regulations in ag and markets when it comes down to food safety. You can also ask your market manager. There are a resource there what the rules are at the farmer's market. Always think about being safe. Sampling options, requirements could be wearing gloves, having sampling containers, temperature checks, having trash containers, having like soap and water, especially if people are going to be eating stuff. And then Farmers Market Federation of New York has a handout that I pulled some of this from, especially when it comes down to the different requirements that for each different product. Fresh produce, there's no permits required. If you're doing plant sales, you need to have a nursery grower dealer license. It's a license that you can apply for through New York State Department of Ag and Markets. It's for 2 years. It's $100. And you basically would need to display that card when you're doing plant sales at the farmers markets. You also need to make sure that you have a valid New York State sales tax certificate. Eggs, there's no permits or licensing or certifications required. Just that they're clean shelled eggs and they're maintained at 45 degrees Fahrenheit or less. So when my mom was market manager, she would go around and check to make sure people had a thermometer and were keeping the temperature checks on it. So that's really important to know, like keeping things in cooler and keeping things cool in regards to eggs. And eggs must be from your own farm hens, not purchased eggs. So honey, maple syrups, no permits, license or certificates required. If single ingredients products, once you make like a value added, say like a diffused lavender into like honey or maple syrup, then it would require being in a commercial kitchen. So once you also make like the honey or the maple syrup into like candies, that would be when you would need to have a commercial kitchen, a 20C license. Baked goods that you can get a home processor license in your State Department of Ag and Markets. And if you're doing more high risk value added products, baked goods, then you would need a commercial license. There are some requirements when it comes down to like if you decide to chop. It's usually if you end up doing any type of chopping in regards to produce. So with mushrooms, like chopping those, slicing them, so that would be required in a commercial kitchen. And then non-alcoholic cider and fruit juice. That is a 20C license, a commercial license. And that's juice has to be either pasteurized or UV processed. If you are a winery, brewery, or distillery, you can sell at a farmer's market, but you need to have either a one-time permit to do it, or you need to have a marketing permit in which allows you to, a marketing permit would allow you to do samples at the farmer's market, but also sell your product. If you're just gonna like do a farmer's market one time, you could do like a special permits licensing for like a one and done event. Not gonna get too much into this. We've already kind of covered the processed foods with a little bit of highlight of home processors and commercial license. You can sell meat at a farmer's market. USDA slaughtered and processed must have a USDA and Article 28D license required if warehousing for wholesale. You can also sell chicken at a farmer's market. There's also different meats, fish. Dairy is also, you can sell dairy at the farmer's market, milk. So there's a lot of different options of different things that you can sell at the farmer's market. I'm gonna open this up to questions. One thing I do want to hit upon first is fresh cut flowers or dried flowers. You don't need like a special permit through the state in order to do that versus like that greenhouse nursery license. You need to apply that because the plants are in actual soil when it comes down to it. There's a lot of different resources out there. There's Farmers Market Legal Toolkit. The Farmers Market Federation of New York has resources, and New York State Ag and Markets.